Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week I thought maybe look a little bit at using color within landscapes. So color, the whole color theory and all of that, it's quite complex. So in this video I'm only going to scratch the surface. I'm also going to try and approach the whole thing in a slightly different way, a different viewpoint if you like. If we just look at the sky first of all. So the sky is blue, clouds are white, sometimes grey, sometimes black, except of course they're not. So in that little bit at the start there, I could see all kinds of things, ochres and purples, and if it was sunset or sunrise, we'd probably have things like pinks and oranges and reds in there as well. In other words, just looking at the sky alone, there's a lot going on in terms of colour. Very often, not always. So things can get complicated quite quickly. And this is one of the things, so I've talked before about the different approaches to art. If you're a naturalistic style of artist or a modern artist, if you're a naturalistic artist, you're trying to reproduce what you can see. And if you can see 5, 10 different colors in the sky and maybe 3 times that many colors in the landscape, things are going to get quite complicated quite quickly. And you're going to have to do a lot of color mixing, and you're going to have to worry about values and things like that. If you're going down the modernist approach, no rules, do whatever you want. So modernist artists also have the advantage, if you like, of being able to use abstraction. So in this case, abstraction can simply mean simplifying things. So instead of 20, 30 different colors, we'll choose 4 or 5 different colors and work with those. So there are, there's no perfect way to approach art, but sometimes the modern artist has some advantages over the naturalistic artist. There are also advantages to simplifying and using a limited palette. And at least 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. The first one is just, it's simpler. If you've got 4 or 5 colors, that's easier to deal with. If you're trying to mix lots of colors and get all kinds of values, things get very complicated. The other advantage of a limited palette is not always the case, but the final result, depending on how you choose your colors, the final result could be more harmonious. So it's more perhaps aesthetically pleasing. Or you could choose to have maybe 3 colors that are quite harmonious and a 4th color that stands out, clashes with these other harmonious colors. And you can use that clash for emphasizing a certain thing within your painting, for example. So there's all kinds of things you can play around with. And because you've simplified the number of colors, it is easier to experiment with these things, I think. Another thing worth considering as well is the medium that you use. So if you're using wet medium, oil paint, acrylic, gouache, watercolor, things like that, of course then you can mix colors on the palette before you even put them onto the paper or the canvas. So you might have just 3 primaries and a white, for example, and with that you can create all kinds of different colors. You can start getting your secondary colors, the orange, purples and greens. You can add white to something like red and create a pink. So just with those 4 colors, 3 primaries and a white, you can create almost an infinite variety of different colors and shades. When you're working with soft pastel, any sort of dry media, as I am here, of course you can't mix them in the same way. So you can still use a limited palette, but you're going to need more colors, usually. You can, to some extent, layer pastels. So you could put down one color and then put another color on top of that. But there are limitations with that. For a start, soft pastels tend to be very opaque. So if you put a blue on top of a yellow, it's not necessarily going to give you green. You're just going to get blue. But what you can do if you're very delicate in the way that you apply the pastel, you can leave little bits of the undercolor showing through. And in that case, you can get some visual mixing happening. So it's a bit like the neo-impressionists, Signac and Seurat and all those sort of guys, with their pointillism. So they did the little tiny dots of color. When you step back from the painting, your eyes can't resolve all the tiny dots, so it sort of merges together in the retina of your eye to create different colors, and very vibrant and sort of dynamic mixing of colors. And this, as I say, the same similar sort of thing can happen with pastels if you're very careful on how you apply the layers. Anyway, to sum up, I think color is a complex thing. It's a very interesting thing. The modernist painter does have the advantage of being able to use abstraction in the sense of being able to simplify the color scheme and to play around. You don't have to stick to representational colors. You can play around with different things. You could have a green sky and blue clouds if you wanted. There's nothing stopping you. No rules. Whereas the naturalistic painter, their whole goal is to paint what they see, so they don't have that sort of freedom. These are 4 of the paintings that I've done recently, landscape paintings. They're all soft pastel plus a bit of compressed charcoal, Derwent XL block charcoal. And you can see the colors. It's a pretty, it's similar color scheme in each of the 4 paintings. Mainly sort of yellows, blues, a few sort of ochre and that type of thing in there. I was happy with these paintings. The way I'm working at the moment is I'm trying to do a painting every day and to sort of share that with the world, if you like. Mainly posting to Patreon, but it's not hidden away behind a paywall. It's available to anybody. The only reason I'm choosing Patreon is if you do it on YouTube and Instagram and things like that, there's that dreaded algorithm in the background that may hide it from some people and show it to others, and you don't really know what's going on with this dreaded algorithm. Whereas with the Patreon, I put it up there. I put a link, for example, in the description box below this video. You click on the link, you can see the artwork. It's simple. It means anybody who wants to go and see it can see it, as long as they have the link. And as I say, I put a link in the description box below. Okay, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching and listening, and hopefully see you again in next week's video.